Okay, so I think a lot of people are curious as to why I did this whole nonsense. It doesn't make sense to a lot of people. But honestly, to me, it was just out of purely curiosity. I was really curious about what hitchhiking was all about, because it's all just negative connotation. If you hitchhike, you're going to get raped, you're going to get killed. And I was really curious, so it was something I needed to try out for myself. So when I researched about hitchhiking, it led into people who lived alternative lifestyles without money and stuff, and all of that kind of made me really curious of how people did that. Because our lives revolve around money so much, and then that started to annoy me as well, like, oh, we're the only creatures on earth that pay so much attention to these pieces of paper that mean nothing to any other living creature. So I was like, yeah, okay, so the best way to experience it is to actually just fly somewhere with minimal money and try out this whole experience. So I flew to Sweden because I had some friends there, and I didn't dare to do it alone, of course, so I started off hitchhiking with a friend. And yeah, so how do I use this? Yes, okay. One of the things, when you have not much money, you will need to dumpster dive, and that's what I would do. Go to dustbins, look for food, which honestly, actually, I really, really enjoyed it, because I'm like, oh, free food, especially if you find like something that's actually nice and edible, like bread that doesn't, this is probably not the best photo, but these things, were edible as well. So, dumpster diving actually got me really excited, and it was a fun experience for me. I really, especially in Europe, it's the best, because their grocery stores throw away their food in like a more clean manner. If you want to do it in Malaysia, probably not possible, but in Europe, no problem at all. These are not in order. Okay. So anyway, in Sweden, after my friend left, I was by myself, and at that time, I was just, oh crap, now do I actually dare to hitchhike by myself or not? I was kind of left paralyzed. Do I start taking a bus? Do I hitchhike? I really didn't know. Finally, I decided, okay, you know what? I will, and I have to do this. So, went outside to the streets. I was in the south of Sweden at that point, and I just stood there with my sign. And then this guy stops his car, and I get in. He was an elderly Danish guy, and he was asking me what I was doing, why am I doing this, and all that. So I explained my story, and then he said, why don't you just fly to Berlin, because that's where I was heading at that point. And I said, no, I have no money. And then he said, why don't I buy you a flight ticket? And I was like, no, please, don't do that for me. But anyway, he drove me to the airport, tried to buy me a flight ticket, but flights were too expensive. So he bought me a bus ticket instead to Berlin, and dropped me off at the train station in Copenhagen. So he dropped me off, and I said, thank you very much. And then he left me there. Sorry, I really need water. I'm really thirsty. Can I get water? And then, 20 minutes later, I see him walking towards me again. And he came up to me just to say, here's my contact number. Please let me know when you have arrived safely in Berlin. If not, then I can't rest. And I was just like, oh man, that's so sweet of you. Why would you do something like this for a random stranger that you have no idea about? And he said, well, because I have a granddaughter now, she's about 7 years old, and in the future, she's going to be traveling just like you. So I hope that someone else will show her the same kindness. And I was just like, what? My first hitchhiking solo experience, and someone is so kind. So obviously after that, I kept in contact with him. I'll let him know, like, hey, I'm safe, I've arrived in Berlin, and even throughout my travels, I'll let him know I'm safe. And so that was great. Throughout that as well, like, I just kept on meeting more and more really kind people, and these are experiences that you would not get unless you actually put yourself in a vulnerable situation. So anyway, I went to Berlin, and do you know of couch surfing or Be Welcome? So Be Welcome is something like couch surfing, and so the host there said, hey, anyone can come and stay at my place. It's like a huge house, and a lot of people can stay. So I expected it to be like a nice place in the woods, sort of. But when I got there, it was just like this random sign in the middle of nowhere, and it's actually a squat. And I didn't even know what a squat was before this, but now I do, where it's just a bunch of people who are staying in a place not paying rent. So it's just a bunch of like hippies in like their teepees and trailers and all that, and I was just like, oh, so this is where you guys are staying. So I went there, and it was interesting because I've never been in that sort of community before where everyone's just kind of staying there, doing their own thing. Everyone also dumpster dives. No one, only a few of them pay money. You get like shamans, healers, like a pregnant woman who just wants to get out of the city and live in the woods, like just this strange community who lives there. The interesting thing is, so when I went to Europe, I had one thing in mind. I wanted to find the Rainbow Gathering, which is an extremely elusive hippie gathering that I couldn't find any information about. The only thing I knew was that, it's like the roots of Burning Man. And if you know what Burning Man is about, it's also like this, I don't even know how to describe it. Google it if you want to. But yeah, so anyway, when I asked anyone in Europe about Rainbow Gathering, no one knew what it was about until I went to this place. And I met this girl who was just about to leave this squat area, and she came up to me and asked me, hey, are you going to the Rainbow Gathering? And I was just like, you are the first person who knows what I'm talking about. And so she had the email of the person I could email to find out information about the Rainbow Gathering, which, you see, you just kind of, there's this, and then there's that, which is just a drawing of some mountains and an X saying like, yeah, the Rainbow Gathering is here in Lithuania in some mountains. And I'm like, what? How am I going to get there? So, and then, so in this squat area, I was staying in someone's trailer, and the trailer belonged to a person that no one has seen in 6 months. But coincidentally, on the second night that I was there, the owner of that trailer came back to that place, and he was like, hey, I really want to go to the Rainbow Gathering. Do you want to go? So I was like, what? Yes. So everything was just kind of falling into place, and I was like, dude, this life does not make sense, but it's amazing. So we hitchhiked to Lithuania, went there. It's just a hippie gathering for a month. They don't really allow electronics or cameras or phones, so I don't really have photos. No alcohol, no drugs, but everyone's just kind of, high on life. And it's interesting because there's no modern technology, so you just kind of really feel like you're back in the Middle Ages. And even for food-wise, people volunteer to cook in this self-made kitchen, and then once the food is almost ready, everyone in the kitchen yells out, food circle, and then whoever else that hears it in the mountains also yell out, food circle. So that's how everyone in the community in the mountains hears about it. And then you gather around the main fire, and you sit around the main fire, and you have your bowl, and then people come and like serve you food, and then you eat. And so it's just, and also in terms of music, you just need like one person to come up with a djembe, and then another person comes out with a guitar, and a saxophonist, and a cello, like all these non-electronic musicians just come and gather together, and you hear all this in the middle of the mountains, and it was one of my highlights of the trip. And, all right, so I would say overall hitchhiking in Western Europe, generally you would feel very safe. You don't feel like you're going to get robbed or raped. You may wait a lot longer because people are not as open to stopping, even though they are more familiar with what hitchhiking is. But I would say then maybe just go to petrol stations and talk to people, because then you will feel safer talking to the driver, they will feel safer picking you up and all that. So there's one time I was at a petrol station in Croatia, went to sleep. At that point I didn't even have a tent. So I just put my sleeping bag, slept there. Next morning, woke up, blood everywhere, I had my period, did not know. So I would say, if you travel, if you have this, does everyone know what this is? Yes? Okay, great. Yeah, so if you travel, use your menstrual cup, because this is fantastic. Because before that, I was using tampons, right? And not every toilet has a bin, especially if in a male house. So then you have to wrap your tampons or pad with a whole lot of tissue paper, find a kitchen bin, and just like, so at least this, you just kind of empty it out, wash it, put it back in. Fantastic. Saves money. So anyway, Western Europe, great, hitchhiking. And then you enter Eastern Europe. in the Balkans. I think after Croatia, I entered Montenegro, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, first car stopped. I was like, yeah, I'm sorry, I have no money. And then he said, that's okay, maybe we can sort out a deal. And I was like, what deal? He's like, yeah, what can you offer? And I was just like, no, man, I don't have anything to offer, bye. And then the second car stops. He's like, yeah, I'm going to that direction anyway, come in with, yeah, I can hop in my car. So get in his car, seems decent enough, talks about his family, talks about his kids, blah, blah, blah. Suddenly you feel like one hand just suddenly like, and I was just, no. And he's like, yeah, I think you should come and stay at my place. You will make good company. And I'm like, no, I really don't want to. And then he starts getting really disgusting of like, yeah, I can play your beautiful breasts and all that. I'm just like, ah. So the moment there's a traffic light, I just opened the car door, threw my stuff out, and I jumped out. Next car, also, again, seemed decent, took me out for coffee. Both couldn't speak English anyway, so just sat in silence, drinking coffee. And then when we get to the destination, he stops, and then he just goes like, And then at that point, because I didn't face any of these things before in Western Europe, I really didn't get it. Like, my mind was so naive at that point. I was just like, huh? And he just kept doing that, like, and I still didn't know. Only after like 3-4 times, I was just like, oh, yo, no, I'm sorry, I'm not doing that for you. And he was like, oh, okay, sorry. So at least he was decent enough to ask and then apologize that I did not accept his proposal. So Eastern Europe, people mostly are generally kind. Like, a lot of people have taken me in, even in hostels, inns. People have let me stay for free. But also, yeah, and cars, 15 minutes tops, a car will stop for you. But yeah, also half of them, you just have to be like, no, I'm not having sex with you. And the thing is, from the very beginning, you get in, they already ask, like, oh, you lady, me sex, you no marry, we sex. And it's just constantly, and it's like, what, dude, obviously I'm not going to accept that. Like, in what world is that happening? But that happens so frequently that it just becomes really irritating after a while. It's not scary anymore, because these people, like, thankfully, no one ever really got violent. They just ask. And then if they don't want to stop the car, then I'll just open the car door and do this. And then they'll be like, oh, okay. Then they get scared that I might actually jump out of the car. So then they stop and they let me out. I would say I wasn't always brave or whatever, because I think it was only in Bosnia, like over 3 months later, at some point, I realized I was in the middle of nowhere and I just looked around me. I didn't know what I was going to do. But at that point, I felt no fear. I was just like, you know what? It's fine. It's okay that I don't know where I am. I have a tent. I can just sleep anywhere I want. Like, things are going to work out. I'm not going to die anytime soon. And to me, that was such an amazing feeling to realize that, like, you know what? Things are going to be okay. It's okay to not know what's going to happen. So, yeah, that was quite like, ooh, moment for me. After Eastern Europe, yes, I went into Turkey. And in Turkey, so I just like sleep anywhere. I just put tent up wherever, behind some trees. Preferably if you can find like a petrol station, it's not too far away, so you wake up, you want to go toilet, no issues. When I went to Turkey, so remember the Danish guy who picked me up and bought me my ticket to Berlin, he dropped me an email saying, hey, if you don't mind, I would like to buy you a flight ticket back to Denmark. And I was just like, what? No, this is too expensive. I can't accept it. And he was like, no, even if you just want to stay for 1 day, 2 days, fine, it's really up to you. I'd just like to hear your stories again and see you before you go further away from Europe. And you know how you can sense when someone gives you something and is expecting something back, or someone is just giving you something out purely because they want to. So I knew this guy was just like genuinely a nice guy, and it took me a while. I spoke to a lot of people, and then people were like, yeah, you know what, giving is a flow of energy. If people give, you have to receive, and all that hippie stuff. And it's just like, yeah, okay, I'll accept it. So I accepted, and I flew back to Denmark, which was amazing, because finally, like, after over 3-4 months of being in patriarchal countries, to just go back to like a civilized nation of not having men just constantly stare at you and trying to touch you and la la la. So going back to Denmark was great. Stayed with him for a bit. Stayed with some other friends that I met at the Rainbow the last time, and it was just, I had a great time. And then I flew back out to Iran. Also, yeah, he bought the ticket, which, it's just, Anyway, so Iran to me was amazing. I really did not expect that amount of hospitality. Almost every car I got into, they all invited me back to stay at their place. Even taxi drivers would let me get into a taxi for free. Trains, they let me ride the trains for free. Like really, they were just all somehow just amazed that a female is alone, and they're like, hey, let us help you out, la la. So, and then, but I was in Iran quite long because I had to get my visa for India and Pakistan. By the time that was done, I only had like 3 days left to hitchhike about 900 kilometers to get out of the country. And I was just like, there's no way I can do that. There's way too many kilometers to hitchhike for 3 days. But there's one night, I was just sleeping at a bus station, and then this person comes up to me, and he buys me my bus tickets, all of them, to get out of the country. And I was just like, why did you do that? And he said, God told me to. So, thank you, God. And then, so anyway, Iran into Pakistan. So, Iran, Pakistan, there's this whole terrorist zone where you're not allowed to travel by yourself, and that's why they give you like police and army escorts with guns to just like be with you for about 48 hours. And so that was, I wouldn't say exactly scary, but it's not anything that I would have previously imagined. And you don't see any women throughout this entire time. I think they're all, I don't know, in the kitchen or whatever, but so it's only men and their guns, and you're just there, and they don't let you stand out in public at all because they're afraid you might get shot. And so that was kind of experience going to a terrorist zone. But mostly safe. Pakistan, people were great as well. When my mom heard I was going to Pakistan, she was just like, people from there are coming to Malaysia to run away. Why are you going to that country? But it was a necessary country to go through to get home. Running out of time. Okay, so anyway, Pakistan, and then I went into India, which India actually also, what saved me were the Gurdwaras. If you heard of Gurdwaras, they are the Sikh temples. So if you are caught in India, you have nowhere to stay, no food, go and stay there because they will take you in and they'll feed you and they take care of you. So that's how I survived in India, and it was fantastic. But then I was really annoyed because I made like hitchhike all this way, right? And then I get to the border of India and Myanmar, and then the border closes 2 days before I arrive. And they tell me I cannot cross the border. I was just like, but I'm almost home. You cannot stop me now. But they're like, no, we can't. The border's closed. So I waited there for like over a month. So I was in India for a total of 2.5 months. Border never opened. So that's when I was forced to fly down to Thailand. So I was really frustrated at that point. I felt like a failure because I was going to hitchhike all the way back, and then now I have to say I flew. So, anyway, flew into Thailand. Thailand as well, if you need a place to stay, no money, stay at temples. They'll take you in. And then so by the time you're in Thailand, you would think mostly safe, right? Thailand, people are great overall, safe, you're almost home. So I was in Surat Thani at that point, again, with my sign. Truck driver stopped, got into the truck, and I was just like, hey, are you leaving? He couldn't really speak English, but minimally. I was just like, are you leaving to Hat Yai today or tomorrow? Hat Yai is the border, right, between Malaysia and Thailand. And he was like, yeah, leaving today. So I get into his truck, and then first he sends his truck for repair, took some time. Again, I double-checked with the guy who worked there and could speak English. Is this driver leaving today or tomorrow? He said, leaving today. But then after that, he takes me to meet his family, meet his mom, his wife, his son, meet some friends, and by the time it was evening, so I was really annoyed, like, I just want to get back to Malaysia, but now it's nighttime, and I cannot hitchhike, because I don't hitchhike at night. So, so it was dark at that point, and then he brought me back to another friend's house. And so this is in the truck, and this is him. You can't see his face. But anyway, so went back to his friend's house, and then the friend just took out all of his stuff so that I could sleep in the room. So I went in the room, I put down all my things, and the whole time he was just very chatty, la 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 la, talking in Thai. I cannot respond. So I just like, ha 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 ha. And I was really tired by that time. Like, I really want to sleep. I really didn't want to be here, but I just have to keep smiling and entertaining because you were nice. So yeah, so I put my sleeping bag and I lied down, and he was still like just like standing on top and talking. So I figured, okay, the best way to make him shut up is to just pretend to sleep, right? So I closed my eyes, turned to the side. Next thing I knew, it didn't register to me what happened, but I felt like my whole brain was vibrating. So I immediately turned around and I see him standing on top of me, and he was just holding something. In a split second, I was just like, oh shit, I just got hit the back of my head with a hammer. I got up and I went to the wall and I stared at him, and I was just like, oh shit, I'm gonna die one day before I get back to Malaysia. I'm almost dead. Because what I noticed then, it was not a hammer, he was holding an axe. He just hit me at the back with an axe. And so at that point, I was just like, ah! So then like I ran out, but then when I ran to the main door, and his friend was still there, right? So the friend was lying on the floor, and I was just like, can you please help me? Your friend has an axe and he's gonna kill me. And the friend just looked at me, and like went back to his phone. And so so when I went to the main door, I was just like, oh no, my passport's in the room, I can't even run away. And at that point, the guy's tone immediately changed. He was just like, shouting. And so I just like kind of knelt on the floor and started apologizing, because the only thing I knew how is to pacify the situation. Like, I can't really fight, right? So then he started doing some motion of taking off clothes and all, and I was just like, see, when I get into situations, men want sex, always. So I was just like, okay, you know what, chill. Let me go take a shower and then we can have sex. And he was like, oh, okay. So I get in and I just grabbed my passport and I ran out. And I ran out trying to go to the neighbor's house, but like no one was there, and I hid, and my heart was pumping, my mouth was dry. I was like, how did I get in this situation? Nah. And I kept looking, but like no one was following me, so I ran out, found 7-Eleven, managed to call police. Police came, didn't know what I was talking about, took about 1 hour to finally like convince the police to go to the house, get my stuff, showed him the axe, took some photos, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And so that night, I just slept at the police station, and I was just, oh man, I really don't want to do this anymore. I just want to go home. Couldn't sleep, obviously. But next day, woke up, the sun came up. I was just like, you know what? Let's continue. Let's go back out with my sign again. And then I made it home safely. So, yay. All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.